It is Sunday sit-down time. With us now virtually is Vahe Gregorian from the Kansas City Star, one of my favorite writers of all time, also a Mizzou grad, as am I. So Vahe, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's fun to have you on.
Hey, great to be with you, Andrew. Nice to see your face, your full face, which it's been a while.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll get to see each other in a press box soon. But let's start with the Chiefs. A 4 p.m. start on a Monday. Vahe, you've covered sports your whole life. Have you ever covered a 4 p.m. kickoff on a Monday?
I'm pretty sure nobody has ever covered a 4 p.m. kickoff on a Monday, at least not in modern history that I know of. And it will be a little bit weird, but I think since about March 12th, we have lived in a world of complete flux. And I think we understand that things are ever shifting and just kind of, as Andy Reid would say, kind of have to roll with it.
What do you think of the matchup? 2 4-1 teams. Buffalo also a strong team, and the Chiefs coming off, their worst performance of the year.
Well, and Buffalo's coming off a tough performance too. So, it's funny, going into last weekend, it shaped up as possibly 2 undefeateds, and now it looks a little different. I do believe that a few things are going to fall into play here for the Chiefs. I think they'll be highly motivated. I think the Chiefs at their best are still the team to beat. I think they got caught a little off guard by some things from the Raiders. The point of concern, though, that I have is that it does seem like teams have been able to generate some pressure without blitzing too much or blitzing too routinely. And I think that's a spot I'm going to look for on obviously the Chiefs' offensive game. And then I think the defense had some trouble generating pressure last week, too. And there's a chicken and egg factor with how it played out in the secondary. It seemed the Raiders exposed some communications things and issues like that. But the last thing I'll say about last week's game is that, the Raiders won fair and square and deserved to win. But I do believe that if a couple calls just went the other way, it probably plays out as a Chiefs win. And that's true of every game, right? You can say that, and as my colleague Sam Mellinger likes to say, that's kind of the ballad of the loser if you overemphasize that. But the real point is, I don't think the Chiefs are suddenly, this totally different team than what we thought they were. I think they're human and really good.
Well, they kind of are a different team. They won't be on Monday, but they added, one of the best running backs, albeit he's been not as good recently, but in LeVeon Bell. What do you think he brings to the Chiefs that are already loaded? It's kind of unfair, isn't it?
Well, look, there's a very real question to be asked about what he has left in the tank in a lot of ways. It's been 3 years since he had a 100-yard rushing game. Now, one of those years was a year off, so maybe in the long run that plays favorably. But then the last 2 years, he averaged 3.3 yards a carry with the Jets. Now, the Jets had one of the worst offensive lines in football last year, and they're 0-5 this year. And there was obviously some disharmony at best with LeVeon and Coach Adam Gase and probably some other organizational things. So I think what we're looking at here is a guy who's going to be highly motivated, who the rest of his career kind of hinges on these few months with everything from how he performs to how he fits. So I think the other thing going in the Chiefs' favor with this is Andy Reid has a pretty good history of being able to work with guys that are in this situation. And I do believe he's created a culture that will impact LeVeon Bell more than anything else.
Certainly going to be fun to watch Andy Reid call plays for LeVeon Bell, and also with Allaire and all the other weapons they have on that team. Moving on to Mizzou football, who it seems like every day they're playing someone new in the next week. The Vandy game was postponed this week, and next week it'll now be Kentucky as opposed to Florida. Those two flip-flopped. I mean, if you're Coach Drinkwitz, do you just put your hands up in the air and say, just whatever?
Well, yes and no, right? I mean, I think you say, this stuff keeps happening. Then you also say, what are you going to do about it? And this sounds kind of hokey, but I do believe it's true. There's a lot of sort of life lessons in football all the time. I think we see that in sports all the time. And I think it's fairly applicable to the current situation. I think we're all in some way or another called upon to make the best of the circumstances. And that's defined differently for different people. Obviously, a lot of people are living in great turmoil economically or with their health. But I think the rest of us who are healthy and fortunate to be engaged in opportunities like our jobs or playing college football, I think we almost have more of a duty to be appreciative of that opportunity and to do the most with it. So one thing I've been truly impressed with, deeply impressed with him, is how he had the team ready through so much uncertainty, so many things that have happened, just trying to install the program and being ready to play that game last week against LSU as meaningful a win in a lot of ways for Missouri football, as there's been in certainly several years. And obviously we all know by now the first time defeating a defending national champion since 1978. Now, granted, it's not the same LSU team and things like that, but I don't want to diminish that victory. That is a signature moment that needs to be capitalized on.
How do you think Mizzou responds now? Coming off a huge high as you could get, beating LSU. Now you got the week off, and you got Kentucky next week, who's coming off 2 wins, one over a Tennessee team that crushed Mizzou just a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I think this refocuses another point about all this, which is it's really, in the end, about how you play, not necessarily your opponent. Obviously, different opponents bring different challenges and different things to get through, but I would assume that one of their points of focus has been working on, did you get better today while they're in between things, and sharpening their own game and being more, whether it's more of a rhythm offensively now that they've really kind of settled in at quarterback, more of a sense of themselves as their identity on defense. There's a lot they can be doing without necessarily knowing the opponent, but they'll have enough time to adequately prepare for the specifics of next game with Kentucky.
Well, Vahe Gregorian from the Kansas City Star, I always appreciate you coming on. I think this is the first time that me and you have been together on Sunday Sit Down, so that's another plus to 2020 is we're able to get you on virtually since you live all the way in Kansas City.
Well, it's great pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to stay connected in Columbia, and good to see you, Andrew.
Absolutely. Well, take care. Thank you so much to Vahe Gregorian, and we will be right back after this.